And welcome back to U-Nite Tonight. Again, I'm your host, Bishop Kamal Fraser. And guys, we have a treat for you. Just like we said earlier on the show, we have a special guest that's going to be talking with you this evening. His name is none other than Jeremy Deas. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, man. Doing much better than I'm back here with you.
Welcome back again to MFTN Network, man. You've been here a couple of times before, talking about the goodness of the Lord, talking about some things that you have done with the ministry. We actually traveled to Jamaica several years ago.
Three separate times.
Is it 3 times?
Yeah.
Oh man, wow! Times really have gone fast, because you have really made a great impact on so many different young people. They even talk about that even today. They would mention, oh, that little white guy.
That's accurate.
Absolutely, man. What is he doing now? And but man, let's talk about where you're at, man. Because you've been on the network. We talk about several things in the past. We talk about you being on the mission trip. We talk about your heart and your desire for ministry. But I really want to just let people know, who is Jeremy Deas?
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, for me, I got to start way back.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to know, who is Jeremy? They want to know, who is Jeremy Deas?
Who is Jeremy Deas right now? Let's see here. I am right now a new father, a husband for about 2 years, a little more.
Amen.
Just had a baby girl, so a newfound father, a son of God the Father. I am a trickster and someone who likes to play jokes on people. Man, I don't know what else to go with that.
Well, and that's all right, man. I mean, you have been an encourager and a motivator, not only for people that you have traveled and connect with, but you have been for people that you call your, confidants, and people who motivate you and build you. You've been encouragement to them. How is it like being in a place where you are constantly pouring into people, even though sometimes, you need pouring into yourself?
It's a privilege, man. God gives a lot of really cool opportunity, and He has in every season. Starting with someone who I live with right now, my wife, we have opportunity every single day to be encouragement. And this is kind of cool that I didn't even think about this, but like yesterday we had a time where after our devotional time, she wrote me a letter of encouragement, and then I in turn wrote her a letter of encouragement, just saying, hey, like, I love you, I'm here for you. So it starts there in the home, but like also, like you said, like from at home to overseas, God gives so much opportunity to give encouragement, and it's just been so cool to. I'm thinking of another opportunity of a close friend of mine who was close in the faith. And then he kind of went into like a season of wandering, and I was just kind of able to be there to be that love and encouragement to kind of draw him back into it. And it's it's a privilege to be that encouragement. You know what I mean? You know that.
Well, let's go this way as well, because and that's for sure, because I look forward to not only being poured into, and that's really even the last thing sometimes I look forward to. I look forward to pouring into others. I like to brighten people's day, and that is the kind of person you are. You just, whatever you got to do to get a smile out of them, is what you would do. But you've been faithful. You've been faithful walking with the Lord for quite some time. You are very active, and you're a community guy, and that's really what I know you to be. It's someone that just loves a community of people. Now, and also a missionary, and we'll call it, because you've been to Jamaica, you've been, where else have you been?
Went to India as well.
You went to India as well, wow. So tell us, what is your current, missions and initiative for mission in general?
Missions, just to clarify, missions for the nations.
In general, what do you want to see happen in a mission field from a heart-to-heart perspective? What you feel needs to happen?
Yeah, man. So like the first time I went to Jamaica, I was in 9th grade.
Right, that's right.
Right, right, yeah. And so doing that, and then going back to Jamaica, and then going to India. So there's this span of years where from a very early age, God gave me the heart for the nations. And it's so cool, too, because he's blessed me with a wife who has the same heart.
Amen.
She's been to Thailand. She's been to South Africa. Anyway, so there's this length of years where going to another land and serving them and loving on them and encouraging them and going with you was such a blessing. Yeah. Where I feel like he's kind of shifted it in a sense is he's given perspective to Myrtle Beach and how this is a land where so many different nations come to our own backyard. Wow. And man, it's so cool how God orchestrates all this. But we just started serving in a ministry called All Nations Cafe.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a ministry specifically for J1 students who come over here on like a work visa, and they come here, and that ministry is devoted where they just open up a church and they feed them. There's games, and there's even a time where they teach English, but they also bring in the Word. So it's just so cool, man. Like that whether you're overseas or you're back home, with that heart for the nations, God's going to use it.
Wow. And it's not, you don't even have to go out of the country to find that mission work. It comes to you even now, which is amazing. One of the things you said that really hit me as you were speaking, and I didn't know this, just like I didn't know something else I'll share in just a second. You went to Jamaica while you were in 9th grade. Did you know that I was actually called for ministry in 9th grade?
Were you really?
I was, and I shared that a few times, how I was called for ministry on the steps of my 9th grade classroom. That's when the Lord spoke to me and said, I want you to be a minister. And I didn't even know that God spoke to God spoke to Paul, in the same manner, and says, I want you to be a minister. And I've held on to that. So hearing you saying that you went that's your first inauguration or initiating into the mission field at 9th grade, where I believe that's when you start to experience the calling?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely where God had opportunity for me to put feet to it. And you were, it was cool how you helped that. Well, so I thank God for you, man.
Well, thank God I was able to do what he says.
Yeah.
Amen.
It was so cool. But actually, in regards to where you had that calling, or you felt that calling in 9th grade, I felt that about 4th grade. Yeah, and we went to the same ministry at the time, and I still remember to this day. I went to actually, man, Pastor Wilder, Pastor Eric,
right, yes, he's a part of this ministry now as well. So,
actually, I think last time I was on here, you were with him. You two were together speaking. Anyways, he was over the youth there, and I was able to just be a part because my parents were over that. We did a campfire time, and the senior pastor was there, and he was just praying over people, just blessing people. And all I know is I don't even remember what he prayed, but what looking back was I felt like that was just a moment where the Holy Spirit just immersed me. I go home because I wasn't able to stay. I was too young, and I'm in the shower, and like there was just this innate desire inside of me, like, God, I want to be a preacher. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew, like, I wanted to be used by God, and from that 9th grade, was a start to that. So.
And it just developed, and grew in you, which is what you do now more than ever. Even, and people do it in different forms and different ways in how they really preach the gospel. One of the other things, still staying at missions, a few years later, after I sent 3 particular missionaries, it was a year I wasn't able to go. It was the very first year I wasn't able to go to Jamaica because I had some conflicting issues. Really, it was a fight from the enemy at that time. They didn't want me to continue the mission. And years later, I realized that I sent 3 people on the mission trip. Their names were Philip, James, and John. It was incredible. Philip, James. I did not realize it at the time. It was years later we were talking about it, and it was Philip, James, and John. Amazing how the mission, Lord just orchestrates stuff and make it come together. But Romans chapter 8, verse 28 says this: all things work together for good to them who love God and are called according to his purpose. Explain to us how trusting the Lord with every trial and struggle along the journey has led and developed such a blessing in your life. How going through all of these things have really prepared you and strengthened you.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many different levels of trial. It could be from what people consider a trial. It could be like just raising support to go across overseas for that for the missions, to hardship and tribulation that's guaranteed to come.
Right.
Man, for me, there's been all kinds of tribulation from, my parents divorcing to, if I may, just to going through a failed marriage,
right.
and just the heartache. I mean, the same kind of heartache from seeing my parents split up and watching the family just fall apart, and just family members going into addiction, and just you just see the corruption and where you see the wages of sin is death. You're just seeing the death and destruction, and the enemy coming in and stealing and killing, and just doing all kinds of stuff, from the failed marriage to where there's betrayal, and there's just so much pain and woundedness and trauma. I'm telling you, man, like in all of that, the most difficult times I've been through have been the most beautiful times at the same time.
Wow.
I was just talking with Allison, my wife, on the way here, and we were talking about how during that specific time of my life where their failed marriage happened, a lot of things happened. That came to ruins. The church body that I was in, there was a huge split.
Wow.
There was friendships and mentorships that just were gone. I had injured my knee at the time, so I couldn't do sports. There was just so much stuff, and I kept on running because I was running from the pain. And Allison was just kind of pointing that out on the way here. But man, whenever I finally just got still, and I let the racing, all that stuff, just laid it before him. Man, I'm telling you, those were the times where he invaded me, man. And there was so much healing that, he made himself known. And I think that's the most, it's a simple but profound truth. Just him saying, I'm with you in the storm. Wow. It's dude, and that's a truth I hold on to today. Where I'm it don't matter what happens. He's I'm with you. Yeah, man. Thank you for reminding me that.
Man, that is powerful. There has been a journey for you, man. You have really gone through a lot at your age, and you have really tested the waters in a lot of ways. But I want to talk a little bit more about that church split. Many do not like to talk much about church splits, but it happened to you.
Yeah.
You went through the test. You went through the trials. You were a part of it. How has it strengthened you? How has it influenced you to do more? And how does it for your wife? And now just tell us a little bit more about how did it work? How does it strengthen you?
Yeah, how it strengthened me was it brought me to a place. Well, on a real note, this is just being real. I feel like God showed me I put far too much trust in man than I did him, and that's a dangerous place when we take things or people and we elevate them above him. It's a very dangerous thing. Or elevating ourselves, So I'm putting way too much trust in people and not enough trust in God. It's okay to trust people, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But the other thing,
don't do too much.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Don't do honestly, man, I really felt like I lost everything in my life. And when all of those other things fell to the ground, he was there. And so it's just okay, God, I can't depend on the outlet of sports. I can't depend on, a marriage. I can't depend on, spiritual leadership. I can't depend on all these things are gone.
All those things failed.
Yeah. And so now it's I'm going to trust you.
Hallelujah.
I'm going to trust you. You're the only one that's still standing. And if I cling to you, I'm going to be standing there right with you.
Glory. Man, that is powerful. That is powerful that you kept that in your mind, that he promised you. He said, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave you. I'm right there. And I preach a message about remaining under the shadow of the Almighty. And I'm sure that is what you're reflecting to, is he was right there. No matter where you go, no matter what situation you were in, he was right there with you. Now, I grew up where people have told me that I won't come out to be anything good. I've been in places where people said I'll be poor and I'll remain as worse than some of my family members.
Yeah.
have you, now you've spoken about all these different categories of things that your family went through, from broken marriages to separation to the addiction and all that your family was going through.
Yeah.
Has there been any time in your life that someone expressed to you or speak down to what your future will be?
Let me think. I'll say there's none immediately that come to mind, which doesn't mean that never happened, but none that are holding true right now that stick out. But
It'll come to you tonight.
It probably will. But that doesn't take away the fact that we have an adversary who wants nothing more to throw those lies. So I think the battlefront's been up here where I'm going through those things and I'm like, oh, well, they did this to me, therefore I probably deserved it. Or I probably didn't do enough to make them want to stay. Or it's probably something about me, and God just whacked all those lies out the way. He's like, no, you're my child.
Wow.
I love you. I delight in you. I approve you. I everything I desire in you is right there, and you are amazing. So like it was kind of like hearing the delight and the approval and the love that he had for me instead of what people thought.
Well, the reason I asked that question too is because one thing that is something that kept me in when I go through my challenges and my days and my years of setbacks and the enemy working overnight to keep me from fulfilling my purpose. The fact that people have told me that I won't come out. And that is what kept me, because I have to prove them wrong. And so for you, what kept you? What is it, that specific word that God says, I am going to be right there for you? Is there something else that kept you going no matter what? Because I'm sure there got to be times when you're like, God, I don't know, I can't do this anymore. Lord, it is so much. It is heavy. Why am I an individual going through so much? What kept you?
Yeah, well, it was most definitely that word. And what it was like, it came to a place where I'm like, man, I received that word and I'm seeing it work in my life and I'm seeing it hold me up, and I'm like, how it impacted me was enough. But then it got to a point where it was like, I want to bring this to others. There's other people who've been through far worse than what I've been, or far less. Who cares? I want to take what God has shown me, what he's done in my life, and I want to share it with others. I want that encouragement you're talking about earlier. Man, God encouraged me personally. I mean, there was moments, if I can just go on a tangent real quick. I remember there was a moment where I'm in my room, or my kitchen at the time, and just having like the utmost pain and affliction going on in my heart, just like, how could this happen? And I remember being knelt over on my counter, just like, and I'm just praying. I'm like, just praying in the Spirit. I'm like, just praying and believing, like, God, this hurts so much, but like, I know you're right here. And it's like liquid joy just got poured over me in that moment. And I started laughing. I start like busting out, deep belly laughing, and then I start, me. I don't dance. I started dancing around my living room. I started like a little kid. I started dancing, and I'm like, there was so many moments of that, and those moments and those times where he spoke to me and he encountered me in the pain. I'm like, I want to bring this to other people. The hopelessness that I felt, and then the hope he came and showed himself to be in me, I want to bring it to other people. That's what's driving me, man.
Man, glory be to God. So you're using the downfalls to become, or I like to call it the setbacks, for a setup for comebacks,
I like that.
Amen. Yeah. So guys, we're talking with Jeremy Deas here, a great friend of mine. He's been on the show several times, and he is so passionate about the things of God. I really want him to tell us a little bit more about his ministry and what he's ministering on, and how important it is for us to be ministering the gospel, especially in the streets, because he finds unique ways of ministering the gospel. We're going to continue with him in another episode on U-Nite Tonight, right? But we're going to continue on U-Nite Tonight right after this.